Hello, everyone! Welcome to Morbius, the Living Spoilercast. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me this evening is my good buddy, Dan Torrey. Hello, Dan.
Hey everybody. Hello Cap. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's been a while. I've missed reviewing things with you, Dan. Could we talk about anything else?
Well, we always get together for like Spider-Man related things, so I
That's
guess this
true.
technically counts, but it's an occasion for this one.
You know, if we turn just you and I talking about Spider-Man stuff into a series, we could call it Spider-Man and his related things.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially if they keep producing these. Craven the Hunter is at least filming, so we'll at least be subjected to that film when it comes out. So
Well, you know what Craven has over this? Like 20% more emotional investment from anybody on the planet
yeah.
originally in the character.
Well, and that's the strange thing, right? Like I'm a huge Spider-Man comic book fan, so I love Kraven the Hunter, but I feel like the general public, Kraven is not even one of their favorite characters. And then even amongst like hardcore Spider-Man fans, Morbius is no one's favorite character.
No, that's
None of them.
true.
And it's so funny, like I was watching a bunch of like promotional stuff for this movie, like Jared Leto and like some of the people that Sony hired to be like their marketing YouTubers, basically like the Nerd Crew, but for Morbius.
Yeah.
They hired these people and they're like, Morbius has been my favorite character since I was a child, and it's like, it's all
Dan's like,
lies. No,
liar.
no.
There's no way. And look, if
Yeah,
you're
no one,
watching
no
right
one
now
has
and
ever thought
Morbius
that.
is your favorite character, and legitimately, that's great, that's cool. I hope you enjoyed this better than I did. I could see that making it worse for people,
Yeah.
potentially. But you have to admit that you are in a very tiny percentile if that's the case.
Exactly. Like I saw someone in the comments say like Morbius has fans. Fair enough. Like
Sure.
people like Morbius out there. I don't dislike Morbius. I don't have any opinion either way. But I think amongst Spider-Man's rogues gallery, Morbius does not rank in the higher echelons, I would say. I think that's fair to say for, even people that are fans.
Well, and everything about, and by the way, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining live if you're doing that. Thanks for watching after the fact if you're doing that. We're going to let live viewers help control the conversation a little bit through the show. If you want to make sure that your question or comment is talked about on air by me and Dan, you can leave a super chat at any dollar amount, but we'll also look at some pre written questions as well. We just got a super chat, and I will tackle that in just a second. But I wanted to say that I don't know, Dan. The thing for me is, it didn't look to me from all of the like material that we were seeing in the background with trailers and just what we knew about this movie being put together that the attitude was somebody at Sony just loves this character and really wants to make a Morbius movie. Because I mean, if
Well,
that was the case, sure, but it really looked like somebody rolled a d20 and was like, here's a list of Spider-Man characters we have the rights to. We can make a movie for who's going to be after Venom, who's going to be next, and I guess Morbius. And then I saw the movie, and that's exactly what it feels like because everything about this feels not only like nobody knew what to really do with a Morbius movie outside of a Spider-Man thing, because I think Morbius as a Spider-Man villain could have been fine if you wanted to
yeah,
do if you wanted to have him be the main villain of a movie.
sure.
But even more than Venom, and Venom you can do decent solo stuff with, but you still would want to, I would think, start him as a villain first and then spin him off. This has that thing where it feels like, and there's a lot of parallels obviously to make with Venom, because it feels like that again in a lot of ways, but like,
Mhm.
uh, it feels like a spin-off to a movie we didn't get to see. It's Elektra again, but she hasn't been in anything.
Yes. Um, No, it's very strange, and apparently this movie was conceived via Amy Pascal having a meeting with Tom Holland at her house, and them talking about what kind of like Sony spin-off movies they should make in the
Really?
Spider-Man universe. I don't know why Tom Holland's opinion was important in this, but she asked him,
No, because spoiler
and they
alert,
were like,
he's not in the
"Oh,
movie.
vampires are cool. Let's make a Morbius movie." And you can see through the lens of like a corporate like suit that has no creative ideas or interesting thoughts of their own, um
Yeah.
coming up with let's make a vampire movie because those have been successful before and like have a built-in audience. It's less of a risk than doing something even like Kraven the Hunter, I suppose, if you're talking about like mainstream appeal. So I can see why, since Marvel is run by corporate boardroom executives now instead of creative people, and especially the Sony end. I mean, this is like even way more so than the MCU people. I can see why this is like something they went for. But I don't know. Like, I don't even think the built-in audience that they were trying to find is even there for this. It seems like, anyway.
No, and if that's what they're going for, at least market it smarter. This has that John Carter from Mars thing where you just called it John Carter. Nobody knows what the heck that is. Like, Morbius doesn't... And they know that people don't know what Morbius is because the tagline was like a new Marvel hero...
Marvel Legend, they call
Marvel it. Legend, what was it? Appears? Yes. Or I can pull up the trade. I forget what it was.
A new Marvel Legend rises.
Arrives. Arrives is what they said. Yeah. So I mean, like, that's as generic as it gets. It's like, we don't know what to do except slap the word Marvel on it, and then do some sort of multiverse thing at the end to make people excited that, oh, it sort of is in the MCU. Okay.
Which, like, we'll talk about that. That whole thing just makes no kind of sense.
No, and they've already been doing multiverse after credit scenes that make no sense, but that's even... I didn't think it could get any worse than the Venom thing in Venom 2 or in the last Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, or No Way Home. I keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an entire mess. So, where should we begin officially?
Let's go ahead and start with these super chats. We've already got 3.
Sure.
And I need to start reading super chats on these live reviews earlier than 45 minutes to an hour in. So let's just start here, and I'll actually try to not look like a liar and do what I said I'd do and let these guys help us direct the conversation. Thanks so much for the input, guys, and the support. Here's $5. Here's $5 is back. Welcome back. It's nice. He just comes out of nowhere. We won't see him for a few months. And then there he is with his $5. I'm not even sure Morbius is worth 5 of my dollars, but you cuties are. Here's $5.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, here's $5. Appreciate you. Yeah, like I said, doing the same thing we did with Venom Dan, we're taking Morbius and we're doing a villain origin story without a hero and then making it a superhero movie. Like, Sony likes to, make a big deal out of, we've got this multiverse, or this universe with anti-heroes. Yeah, they're not anti-heroes. They're just superheroes that kill people. There is a difference, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the Sony suits that make these movies in the boardroom know what an anti-hero is. They just know that, like, anti-heroes are a popular thing. Yeah. And if we make a hero that is called an anti-hero in the comic books at one point or another and make it kind of dark and, our idea of what gritty is,
2000
then...
superhero formula.
Exactly, yeah.
This isn't even because Venom, I felt like, was, everybody said that feels like a real retroactive thing. It feels like a movie that was put in a drawer and then didn't come out, like, in the mid-2000s, and didn't come out until when it came out. But that I felt like looked like a circa Ghost Rider kind of thing, like 06, 07.
Yeah.
This is going back to 01 or 02. Like, Daredevil hasn't come out yet, or just came out. This is a movie, I thought this walking out, I was like, if this had come out in 2003, I would have said, okay, somebody knew about Blade, but didn't watch Blade.
Yeah, it's very strange. I think this movie reeks of... See, this is the very cynical thing that Sony has been doing with their products now that they've been putting out, with the exclusion of their Spider-Man movie, which was also terrible, that they put out recently. But Venom...
Yes, we realize that a lot of our audience loves that movie. It's just how Dan feels about it. I have huge issues with it too. I don't hate it as much as Dan, but I flipped my sign green when I reviewed it. I don't know if I would do that now, but anyway... Go ahead.
So, if you notice with the Sony products that have been the spin-offs of their Spider-Man films, they cut them down to as close as 90 minutes as possible so that they can churn out as many showings as possible and get squeeze as much money out of these movies before people hear that they're terrible.
I didn't think about that.
And then like the next weekend they won't they won't have to worry about that as much.
And
This
also
movie
make them cheaper.
of just having so many things cut out of it. I mean, there are scenes in this movie where characters do not behave like people just because the plot needs to advance, and there's clearly things that happened in between the scenes that are spliced together that we just don't see, and they're very clumsily Frankenstein together. Like, one of my favorite terrible scenes in this movie is Morbius at one point is trying to test how long it will take him to turn into an evil vampire man without blood. So he locks himself in this like glass cell, right? So he's in there for a very long time. He's about to transform into a vampire. Coincidentally, for no reason, Matt Smith in his bathrobe comes into Morbius's lab, looks at Vampire Man Morbius and goes, "You found a cure, give it to me!" And like, how would you know that he found a cure if he's just a vampire man in a cage? Like, this makes no sense. And he gets like,
I guess because he's standing without crutches. Is that all it is?
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. And the whole movie's kind of like that.
Yeah. It's like Power Rangers 2017 on steroids in that way, because that movie had like 3 really weird jumps that into the next day or a few hours later that felt like something was really missing, with like major logic questions. This is doing that from the very beginning all the way to the end, and then ends abruptly and doesn't seem to be done. Like, it seems like it ends on a false climax, sets up the real climax, and then you just don't get it, and they decide to pretend like it's sequel fodder.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right that it starts from the beginning, because I was like not on board with this movie immediately, like from the flashback scenes where we see Morbius as a child, because they establish that Morbius is at this like home for like sick children, right? And all of his other like roommates have died of this like mysterious disease that him and Matt Smith have. I think the character in the movie's name is Milo. So I'll just call him Matt Smith.
For some reason, Morbius renames him Milo, and I never understood that. And he was like, "You're like the third Milo." All these people come in, and he keeps renaming them Milo.
No reason. And Matt Smith keeps the name for no reason. So he comes in, and Morbius decides on the spot that they're going to be best friends. And then right after his friend arrives, literally like hours later, he gets accepted to this school for gifted youngsters. And then he writes a letter to his friend saying, "I love you. I'm going to find a cure for us." It blows in the wind it goes down to these crappy bullies on the street, and then they just started beating up this crippled kid for no reason.
No reason. It was so contrived.
It's like contrivance after contrivance after contrivance. Like, these characters they've met for literally an hour, and we're supposed to be invested in that as like the main emotional conflict of the film. Like, Matt Smith is the main villain of the film, and they've had a relationship that lasted an hour, and then immediately they're best friends.
Yeah, and then we jump forward, and there's again all these things they're skipping that you'd think we might need to see a few moments of. Like, he goes to this school for the gifted, and then we just jump into the future, and like, that could work. Maybe we didn't need to see that, but every time we did that, it always felt like something was missing. And even retroactively, where it's like, I just haven't spent enough time with these people, and we're jumping through time too quickly. We do that standard in Made Us Rest thing where we start in the present for no good reason, and then jump back to before. Like, somehow I'm going to be more invested because I saw a bunch of bats first. Which really just makes me go, I wish I would rather be watching Batman. And I can't be the only person feeling that way through this whole movie, because there's so much Batman Begins imagery just constantly.
There's not even just Batman Begins imagery. There is a scene where Morbius is standing in a glass tube, and bats are flying around him like Bruce in the Batcave in Begins, and it plays the Hans Zimmer Batman Begins theme.
It's the exact same kind of music. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was nuts.
It's insane.
The movie, we're jumping around, and I'll get back to Super Chats in a second, but the movie, Dan, is constantly not only ripping off a bunch of other superhero movies, and is really derivative of those things. But it also, for some reason, has to make it worse for itself by like stating the thing that it's ripping off. Like, why does it keep doing that? Why on earth would you have the line? I couldn't even believe it. Why on earth? You know what I'm gonna say, right? Would you have the line? You wouldn't like it when I'm hungry, because like the whole time I'm thinking Hulk on top of Batman, on top of Daredevil with the sonar thing, which is almost the exact same effect from the 03 Daredevil movie. Again, it's like they saw the trailers of that, and then this comes out, right?
Yep.
But like, how on earth did they have him say, like, I guess they thought that was clever. It's like, oh, this is gonna remind people of Hulk, so we'll mention Hulk. But no, it makes it worse. Like, it's
way
too
worse.
Self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Like, it's Hulk, it's Batman Begins, and then you know what else it is? It's like you took the Lizard out of Amazing Spider-Man, gave him his own movie, and didn't have him fight Spider-Man. Like, the only thing you're missing is Morbius
and he
turning
fought another Lizard Man.
Yes, and the only thing you're missing is Morbius trying to turn the whole city into bat people, or his villain doing that.
Yes. And see, we're jumping. Our review of this movie may sound scatterbrained to people that haven't seen it, but the movie is exactly like the experience we're describing, where it's just like you are kind of just baffled as to how clumsily it's put together from scene to scene. And I think it barely even qualifies as a major motion picture. Like there's not even like a story threads that coherently follow from scene to scene. It's really embarrassing.
See, I can't say I was baffled because I'm starting to get acclimated to it. Like, after 3 of these, like, Venom and its sequel are also kind of plotted like this. They also feel like a different movie was maybe kind of made than this one, maybe even more so. But then the one we ended up getting. The only thing this is missing that would make it actually, like, an iota of entertaining, because, like, there's some performance stuff that I think is okay in this movie, but that's about all I can give it, right? Like, I actually think Leto is fine, and I think if he was given the right script,
fine.
He'd be all right. I wasn't blown away or nothing. I think Matt Smith actually could have been great given the right material.
I think Matt Smith,
and I think he knows what he's in.
The movie.
Is the big difference is that he's trying to ham it up a little bit because he realizes it's just boring Power Rangers, and so he's trying to do something with it. He's like, I guess I'll go Ivan Ooze with this. I don't know. Leto's taking it real seriously.
Okay, so did you hear about how seriously
I did? We talked
about
this the other night, but feel free to bring it up again.
So for those who don't know, Jared Leto apparently forced the production to stop every time he had to go to the bathroom for 45 minutes because he had to hobble over to the bathroom on his crutches, and because he's a method actor. And it's like, dude, this is the movie that you totally committed to. Like, I think he kind of has the worst DC performance and the worst Marvel movie, because like his performance in this movie, like you said, is not terrible, but it's not entertaining. Like, I just watched House of Gucci today, where Jared Leto is like basically playing a cartoon Super Mario in a serious movie, and it's terrible, but it's at least entertaining, his performance.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is that's what it's missing from Venom, is like, and I really hate that second one, but at least that, and some of that's just, I like Carnage, and I don't know why they had to do that to Carnage, but I've got a little investment there that I did not have here, but with Venom, like, there's at least some counterintuitive weirdness that perks you up for a second, and like a fascinating weird performance from your main character, from Tom Hardy. And it's weird because it's almost like you expect they would have gone to an actor like this because they knew that he'd be weird like Tom Hardy, and then he reined it in more than he ever has.
Yeah,
I don't know why that happened, and I was thinking that even with the trailers, where like a lot of people thought the trailers looked terrible, and I was giving it, I don't want to say the benefit of the doubt, but like I was reserving judgment a little bit, because at least Leto wasn't acting like a cartoon character, like you were saying, and I was like, I don't know, he's taking it seriously, maybe there's something here, and then, nah, it's just what everybody said it was going to be, but...
Yeah, no, it's surprisingly boring. which is something that I've like not said about a lot of things. Like I was surprised
Yeah.
at how bored I was at it. I was expecting to go into this movie and have a fun time with it, like I did with because ironically like even the second Venom movie. I think that movie is bafflingly terrible and hilarious. But this movie, like for example, in
there.
Venom 2,
I just can't get.
there's
Tell
a
me I'm
scene,
taking myself too seriously. I cannot get there.
like in the second Venom movie, there's a scene where Venom goes to a nightclub and like basically says that he's gay and like is wearing glow sticks and like does a mic drop moment, and it's terrible, but it's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like because it's just like, how is this even in a film? Like, you know what I mean? Morbius has none of those moments.
What you're saying is there's an audacity that's missing.
Yes.
And if you
the
don't
only
have
thing that
that,
kind of close to that for me was the scene where Matt Smith was like stripping his shirt off and dancing in front of the mirror, and it's just like, this is very strange. But yeah.
Let's go back to super chats. Tom, fight out super chat. Thanks, man. I typically like Matt Smith, but what he did to his accent is awful. Thoughts? Great show tonight, guys. Is it inconsistent in a few places? Like, I wasn't totally taken out by the accent, but I remember there being a couple places where I was like, he seems a little bit off. Like, this isn't how he normally speaks. But that's all I noticed with that.
The only thing that I noticed, I didn't notice his accent really that much, but my favorite thing that I noticed about Matt Smith in this movie is that when he transforms into a vampire, he looks like the villain from the end of The Mask when he puts his green mask face on.
True.
It's amazing.
You and I have watched that together, and I did not think of that.
It's just like it's like the villain of The Mask, but not green faced, and it's kind of awesome.
And it looks like it's using the same effects that they had back in 1994.
Yes. But with CGI, which is weird. Like there's no practicalness going on.
No,
he's just like,
that's a huge mistake. There's no excuse for it, and I've complained about this over and over in so many things. I had this with, and people disagree with me, but I had this with like some of Thanos' minions, where I'm like, I don't really understand why that couldn't just be a prosthetic. I've had this with some Star Wars stuff, like over and over again. And with this movie, there's really no excuse at all, because you're just doing the same thing that Whedon did with Buffy, where you've got vampire, and I hate this with this movie, by the way, that you've got vampires that can, make their faces go back and forth with a vampire face, and we did it on TV with a prosthetic, and like the effect of the change looks a little bit silly on TV, but at least when a character is just standing there talking, it looks like it's there, you know? And like I realized that it goes back and forth a lot in this movie, and that could have been ambitious if we and looked cool if we'd done that with prosthetics, but it just looks lazy because you do it so often, but it's always with CG. So like now you're cheating and it's not impressive, and like if it was like something like Planet of the Apes where I'm hardly noticing it, I would be praising you for doing the whole thing in CG, but it's not like that, so that was not the way to go with it.
Well, and the thing about this movie that, is very apparent, Sony spent like pennies on this movie compared to what a usual Marvel production costs. So it may end up being profitable despite how hard it's bombing right now, because of how little money Sony spent, not just on the production of the film, but also marketing and promotion, all of that kind of stuff. Like they spent almost nothing.
It will be, and you can tell, yeah. And like for Sony, it's like they didn't do any trailers, and they did about the normal amount.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there weren't any like 5.5-minute trailers, and they didn't give away the last scene of the movie. They did give away lots of things that you ultimately weren't spoiled by, because they weren't in the movie. There's a weird percentage of stuff in the trailers that's just not in this movie. Maybe more than I've ever seen with anything. Because we complain about this all the time, but this is the Fort Knox of that nonsense.
It's very clear to me that an entire subplot of this movie existed with Michael Keaton's Vulture, because there are scenes in the trailers that are just straight up not in the movie. And one of the post-credit sequences in particular is clearly the most rushed slapped together thing I have seen in a credit sequence in a long time.
It's Leia in Rise of Skywalker.
Yes, it's horrible. Like, I'm not even sure that that's Michael Keaton's voice in the final post-credit sequence. Like, it doesn't even really sound like him, and he never takes his mask off. So it's clearly not. He clearly wasn't on set at the very
No,
least.
I think it was him. I think he ADR'd it, and I think he did it in one take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, that was nuts. And I was prepped for how insane that after credit scene apparently was, and I still wasn't prepared for it. Like,
well, so the first post-credit sequence further convolutes the crap that's in their last Spider-Man movie they made, where it's like, oh, all the people that know Peter Parker's Spider-Man come to one universe for no reason. And then in this movie, apparently the spell sends a guy who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man to another universe for no reason. So this further convolutes how stupid
the Venom thing already didn't make sense. But there's like some mumbo jumbo that people have thrown out to make it so you can't defend this at all. Like there's nothing.
Yeah, it just further convolutes it. It makes no sense.
At the very least, give us just a concrete rule set in that movie that would have made random people showing up anywhere you wanted them to show up make sense. How hard is that?
Yeah.
Like, all you had to do was say something, anybody that, knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man is potentially susceptible to showing up in another universe. And then you could do it with anybody you want to. Mm-hmm. It's not, I don't know, it wouldn't have been hard. But, obviously, I'm saying that in retrospect, because this movie was supposed to come out before that and was mostly shot before that. And so, retroactively, they decided they had to change it to match. And I don't know what the Michael Keaton stuff was supposed to be that would have contradicted that, but I guess it apparently did, or something contradicted No Way Home. I'm not sure what.
I think that this movie, likely, what happened was, this had a bunch of Spider-Man references in it, and it was going to be more tied into at least the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man, And then Marvel saw the movie and was like, oh no, we can't be associated with this. And then they had to delay it.
Because I think you're right. I think even through Venom 2, because wasn't this even at some point supposed to come out before that, or am I wrong? I'm really not sure.
I'm not sure.
I still think it's very strange that they put out 2 Venom movies and then finally something else that apparently is in that universe.
It was supposed to come out in January originally. That was the original release date for this Morbius movie. So
right, but I mean, I think it was even delayed past that. I think it was supposed to come out last year sometime originally.
Yeah, possibly. I don't remember.
Something. It kept getting pushed back, but
yeah,
because they started pre-production on this back in 2018.
Yeah, and Michael Keaton. Did a bunch of interviews for this movie, where he said he didn't even know that he was like, something about the multiverse. I didn't even know what was happening in the scenes I was in. Which, that's how you get a good performance out of your actor, when they have no idea what's happening in the scenes they're in. Welcome to the magic of modern Marvel movie making, folks.
Yeah. No, I think it was a damage control thing because finally the people at Sony had to have the separate universes explained to them. I think going even through Venom 2, they still did not fully grasp whether or not these movies are in the MCU.
I agree.
I think they didn't know that. And now they've had to concretely make it clear, because with all the Spider-Man stuff, because, there was that picture, the graffiti on a wall and all of that stuff that's not in the final film now. And I really didn't think we'd see that. Especially after No Way Home, I was like, I bet all that stuff gets axed, and then it did. I don't think they were gonna use this to establish there actually is a Spider-Man in this world. I think they were gonna go, retroactively, we're in the same one. I have a theory, Dan, and obviously only time will tell. I think there's a strategy going on when they decide retroactively, after the movie's made, to bring Michael Keaton back and force him in here the way they did. I think you're going to see that continue. and
I agree.
Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Spider-Man 4 will either be whisked away, because why not? We just did it for no good reason with Toomes. He gets whisked away to the Venomverse and will stay there forevermore, or that's what that movie will be about, and it'll be like Spider-Man Run Away from Home, or I don't think they'll use the home title again. I'm just kidding when I say that, but I think that's what it'll be. I think it'll be Spider-Man goes into this universe, and then anybody that Sony really wants to keep using that they've already established in the MCU, they'll just use the multiverse as an excuse to pull them up and put them over here, so that they can take all the credit and the glory and the profits and stuff to continue making Spider-Man movies. I don't know that you'll see that contract continue. I really don't. I don't know why else you do this.
I wonder. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a win-win for Sony, right? Like, the main Spider-Man movies, like, they have to put very little into in terms of, like, creative effort. The suits just show up. They sign a contract. They let Kevin Feige do whatever they want. He creates all these versions of these characters that are liked to at least some degree. And then Sony gets to make their spin-off movies, which are just basically like X-Men Origins Wolverine every time, and they get to pretend that they're pseudo associated with this version of Spider-Man for marketing purposes, and they get people to go to see them, you know?
If they had it to do over again, don't you think they would have waited to make? I mean, maybe not, because they need their names on these their name on these movies and their real like, I don't know, controlling of the Spider-Man property. I think they're kind of jealous of the MCU and everything, and like, so like Spider-Man's our thing. It's the only profitable, like, major profitable thing in movies that we've really had, or one of the most certainly.
Yeah,
like, I think
that and Jumanji are two big properties right now.
Yeah, I think if they had it to do, yeah, and I'm sad to say those are better, and they shouldn't be, but they are. If I enjoy those fights. I enjoy that first one.
I think they're pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna laugh at me, but I actually kind of like.
No.
Okay.
I was just laughing at Sony because somehow made Jumanji movies that were better than Spider-Man.
Well, and I don't understand how that first one made $1 billion. You'll never explain that to me, or at least it did really, really well. It was nuts.
It did make $1 billion, and like that's just the power of The Rock, I guess.
You say that, but he's made lots of movies that haven't done anything like that. Well, nobody cared about Rampage. Like, why Jumanji?
He is the most bankable star globally, though.
That's true. It was also probably just him with that supporting cast as a comedy action thing.
Very true.
Because, like, I don't know. I think people maybe went to see him and Kevin Hart on screen, and
yeah, they've done a lot of movies together. And I mean, I like Kevin Hart and The Rock. You know, they're both great.
They have chemistry. It's fun. Anyway, movies we'd rather be talking about, I guess. But anyway, I think if the Sony had it to do all over again. Again, hindsight being 2020, if they could have just, and I realize that Sony, like, is more responsible for a lot of the decisions and things in making the Spider-Man movies, and then they're just in the MCU. But if they had to do it all over again, they would have made the Spider-Man trilogy that they have, and then, like, sucked Spider-Man into a separate universe where they don't have to deal with MCU anymore, and then make Venom movies, and then make Morbius, and then make Kraven and Madam Web.
Yeah, I can't believe there's a Madam Web movie in production. Like, that movie, I'm not convinced is going to be made after this Morbius thing. Like, if Sony realizes that Venom is the only thing that's bankable out of this franchise, I feel like that will be the first on the cutting block. Nobody wants to see a Madam Web movie. Even less people want to see a Madam Web movie than they do Morbius.
What I don't understand about the Madam Web thing, you might absolutely be right, but where I question it is that has continued to move forward even while Sony has not seemed to really believe in this Morbius movie. Like, they didn't they didn't work hard at marketing it. They didn't seem to care all that much if anybody saw it. Like, at least that's kind of what their actions would lead you to believe. And so why would they keep, go ahead and cast her and all of that?
For this reason.
Recently. Okay.
To please shareholders at quarterly meetings. Studios do this all the time, just like how Paramount announced a Star Trek 4.
Well, and they do that with their Star Trek shows too. They're constantly announcing things and they may or may not happen.
Yeah, and Sony did this exact strategy around the time The Amazing Spider-Man was coming out and not meeting up to their expectations. Remember, they signed Drew Goddard on to make a Sinister Six movie.
Yep.
They announced like 80 spin-offs. Like the Venom movie started as originally part of that universe in early production, and then got morphed into its own thing. Like the studios do like stuff like this all the time to project confidence, so people invest in them and give them money. You know.
Well, one of two things is going to happen with the silly team up thing that's thrown out in, a la Sam Jackson with Avengers, but way dumber. At the end of this, either it's going to be we bring Tom Holland in to fight a Sinister Six, because after all, who cares about that if you're not fighting a Spider-Man, or it's going to be a superhero team that we pretend like is still anti-heroes.
Yeah.
There's every possibility that's just a Justice League situation, but I still think they're going to bring Tom Holland over.
I do too. I think Sony owns Tom Holland's soul at this point, at least for the foreseeable future, because outside of Sony productions, he doesn't seem to have a lot of breakthrough mainstream success like a lot of the other Marvel stars have had, like Hemsworth and Evans and stuff. So I think he will definitely, for money, come and do whatever Sony wants him to do at least once. And I think he will get zipped out of whatever status quo universe he's in the MCU at the end of the last movie. And he will come over, and just like in No Way Home, where he'll fight versions of villains that he's never met before and has no emotional stakes in or relationship with, he'll fight that version of Venom, that version of Morbius, because it's a cool fanboy thing. It won't make any sense story-wise. It won't have any emotional resonance. It'll just be for, roller coaster fanboy, oh my God, that's really dope moment, effect,
And this might be the place where that
be.
finally starts breaking down. Because even people that seem like happier with this movie than us are really down on that after credits scene. I think that's backfiring on them.
Well, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, at the end of the first MCU Spider-Man film, I was excited about the prospect of Vulture being in jail and having that secret of the fact that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, like holding it in. He's in jail with Scorpion. That's how I thought they were going to organically set up the Sinister Six in the MCU. And then that was just completely abandoned so that they could do a cameo parade in the third movie.
And then even with the cameo parade, we still didn't even make it to Sinister Six.
Yeah.
Like, at the very least, they could have done that. It's so weird. Like, I don't want to call that a missed opportunity, because that's not what I wanted, and that's forced together like you're saying, but isn't it really bizarre that you have, just playing devil's advocate for a minute, that you have like two Amazing Spider-Man movies, and then they don't get to finish that because it wasn't successful enough, they decided to go a different direction, go with MCU, and then there's a third Spider-Man movie again, and Sony is bringing in all these villains from before, some of them characters that were built toward that Sinister Six, and they're not going to use that to, like, contrive one in that movie? What are they doing?
Well,
it's everything they wanted, and they didn't do it.
The reason why they didn't do it is because if you look at the concept art for the cameo parade movie they just made, Jake Gyllenhaal was supposed to be in it. Mysterio's in a bunch of the concept art and stuff, and I would imagine Jake Gyllenhaal didn't want to debase himself to come back for something that embarrassing, and he just refused it. He couldn't be bought. So
you think? It's just weird how, like, everybody else was.
Yeah, I mean, two of the actors didn't even have to show up. They literally phoned in their performances, and some of the footage was even from prior films. It was that lazy, Yeah.
That's true.
So,
okay, going back to Super Chat. Senior Stick, still a Super Chat. Okay, we've had so many comments. It's jumped down on me here. Hold on. Morbius should have been defending hobos in an alley. And honestly, I thought they were going to crib from that material some, Dan. I thought this movie was going to go there.
Yeah, because remember when we were reviewing the like weekly comic books that were coming out during the Marvel Now period? Morbius got a series, and I was reading it.
Yeah.
And it was just Morbius wandering around in New York as a hobo, and it was terrible, but it could have been better than this.
Was it more entertaining than this?
Yeah.
Dan, let's just talk about. Let's get back to the movie and talk
Hmm.
about something really superficial, if we could, which might be redundant, but let's do that, shall we? Uh,
Yeah.
so Morbius. Well, first of all, I want to talk about the vampire lore, okay? Because Morbius. Tell me if I'm missing something, because I was not very invested in this movie, and it was difficult to pay attention, and like it really was. I just could not get into the film. I was trying. I might have missed something. So Morbius, there's like this ticking time clock or time bomb for a second, where he is gonna get to where he has to eat human blood to survive. He's killed some people on a boat, and he's like, "Oh no, that was bad. I accidentally killed some people. That makes me an anti-hero because I killed some people, and so I can't be an anti-hero anymore. And I gotta be a superhero." And he's going to try to find a way to stop having to kill people. So he's using some kind of artificial blood, and that's starting to wear off, which
Hmm.
was fine. I didn't mind that. So it's like for a while I had to drink it every 6 hours. Now it's every 4 hours. At some point, I'm gonna have to get back to drinking human blood. Um, where did that subplot go?
You know where it
Did it
went?
just disappear, or did I miss something?
It went in the same place that all of the blood during the action scenes went in this movie. You can tell that, like, there's a point where a guy's throat is slit in this movie and he gurgles like blood is pouring out of his slit throat and nothing comes out. Like, it is cut around anything that even suggests like blood or gore in order to fit the PG-13 mainstream Marvel demographic. They cut all of that stuff out
And
in
so
the
it gets
same way
really.
that the first Venom movie was supposedly had a rated R cut as well, you know?
So then, yeah, but at this point, why even make it that way in the first place when you know you're going for a PG-13? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't get it
Yeah,
either.
but it doesn't make sense, Dan. You're actually
Yeah.
wasting money by doing that.
Yeah. But this is Sony. They
Like,
don't care.
was there any thought in anybody's minds that this being in that same universe and with two Venom movies already, or at least one as they start making this, that,
Yeah.
well, maybe this one they'll let us make rated R. Oh, they don't want that either. Really? That's what you don't have your ducks in a row enough to go, here's the line for violence. We're not going to shoot scenes like that. Let's not waste everybody's time and money by making a cut we can't use.
Well, and one of the things we have to keep in mind is that Sony is now run by Tom Rothman, the guy that used to be the head of Fox when the X-Men franchise was going
And
downhill,
you
and
can
he
tell.
famously hates superhero movies, thinks they're stupid, and does not understand why people like them. So the fact that these movies are like the way they are is very, I
Also,
think,
we're back
understandable.
18 years ago.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
But anyway, I just didn't understand that because that was the closest thing to like some real genuine
Drama.
drama. Yeah. And I was also gonna say just like natural drama. That would be born out of that, and that's what you do with a good vampire story, right? Is like he's got a
Yeah.
bloodlust and he's trying to hold on to his humanity, but he also has to try to survive, and so he's got and so like a typical good vampire thing would be somebody who's a vampire, they're immortal, but the trade-off is they have to be a soulless killer, and we just abandon that immediately so that we can do the Venom formula thing again in a lot of superhero movies, of course, where we take the hero and we just make a real easy evil version of that hero.
Yep.
So as soon as his friend turned out to be another vampire, I was like, I'm out.
It's
Like,
literally the first
okay.
Venom movie again, like you said,
Yeah.
because Venom fights a gray Venom at the end of the first Venom, and then Venom fights a red Venom at the end of the second Venom. And in this movie, we fight Matt Smith vampire. I can't wait to see who the vampire is going to be in the second Morbius if they make it. That's just a different guy.
Well, they'll make a Blade movie, and then they'll have Blade get sucked into a vortex, and then he'll go over here and fight Morbius.
Yeah,
That's what'll happen. I don't
yeah,
know.
it's a thing.
But the other thing that makes it just like Venom is the ticking time clock or time bomb thing. Because if
Hmm.
memory serves, didn't Venom also have a thing where it's like the symbiote is killing you from the inside, and then we just sort of drop that? Or
Yeah, I think it's vaguely in there, kind of like it is with
or did
your.
that actually kind of make more sense, and I'm just not remembering that movie right? But I remember being confused about that in a couple of viewings where I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like he can't keep the symbiote; they're not compatible now, and then they are again. The end, and we have the same thing here. I don't understand what the pathos is supposed to be with Morbius. I don't understand what the tragedy is. Like, let me break it down. He becomes a vampire in every way except for the sad parts, with the exception of he killed some people on a boat, and there's never really any major repercussions for that. So he kind of gets off with. Well, I mean, I guess everybody's chasing him and stuff, but by the end of the movie, I guess he's going to be okay. So I mean, I guess there's his reputation and stuff. So I mean, that's fair. But Dan, he doesn't have to like be a scary monster. He can turn the face on and off. He doesn't have standard vampire weaknesses. They make fun of that in the movie, where like he's not susceptible to holy water. He's not susceptible to sunlight. I like some vampire stuff, by the way. I'm in for a good vampire movie, and I'm also in for a vampire movie about a modern vampire that doesn't have all the same rules, and where it's like we mostly do with zombies now, where it starts from a science place instead of a magic place, where it's about genetic engineering and stuff. But like, I wouldn't mind being Morbius. Like, okay, you have to drink blood, but he seems to have gotten around that somehow. And why is there no talk about animal blood too? Like, when you do a vampire thing, you can't ignore animal blood. There has to be a rule about it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that, and I don't remember there being any talk about that.
Well, he has that synthetic blue blood because they clearly inserted that as a thing, like, oh, so Morbius doesn't have to drink actual blood in the movie for, PG-13 purposes.
Yeah, but after a while that's supposed to wear off, and then he'll have to drink blood again.
Yeah, and then it's just completely dropped.
He does drink the girl's blood at the end. When she
dies.
Dies.
And that turns her into a vampire. So that's one of the rules from traditional vampires that randomly works?
I don't know why, though.
Yeah.
Well, because it's supposed to be like I don't know, with vampire stuff, it's usually supposed to be they're not thinking about it, right? Of course, but an exchange of fluids. But I don't want to get gross or anything, but I don't see how any fluids went the other way. Like, he bites her, and now she's a vampire.
She like bites his lip while they're like
kissing.
That's
right. Why did she do that, though? I was confused about that. Okay, so at least it maybe sort of makes sense. If any of his blood gets in a person, they turn into a vampire. I can accept that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But why'd she do that, though?
I don't know. One of the things that I thought was very conspicuous about this movie as well is that the villain plot is just the Harry Osborn plot for Amazing Spider-Man 2, just recycled. It's literally the same thing.
That's a good point.
I have this like debilitating disease. Hero Man has the cure that he won't give to me because it's too risky, and I want it, and I'm going to steal it from him.
That's right.
It's the same thing.
You know what else? We were talking about Batman earlier. About 6 seconds into the movie, I was like, okay, so you just made an origin for Man-Bat, and then made it a movie. So now it's going to be really weird if anybody ever, like, one of the characters I want to see in Matt Reeves movies is Man-Bat. Wouldn't it be really weird now if Reeves brings in what's his name, that character, and he is like way better than this?
Oh, he will be.
And then if anybody goes back to Morbius ever, I think everybody's gonna forget about this movie like 6 seconds after they see it, or at least a lot of people, because honestly, I'm forgetting details right now. This is not sticking with me. I saw it 5 hours, it's like 6 hours ago. Yeah. But yeah, like, it's, and I realize that there's a lot of similarities with Man-Bat and Lizard, so there's already going to be a little bit of that inherently, but, like, I don't know, he's a giant bat creature that gets that way because he's trying to cure himself from a disease. Like, he's Man-Bat.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the things I was saying to
Langstrom. I was sitting here with Kurt Connors in my head this whole time. It's Kurt Langstrom.
Yeah. So one of the things I was saying to my, a bunch of my friends when I saw this movie and saw the last Spider-Man movie, which was horrible. I feel so jealous of you Batman fans because you get things like the Joker movie, which is derivative in some ways, but like has a amazing performance at the
It's
center of
still
it, and
watchable.
it's a pretty good movie
I think so
otherwise.
too.
Like, yeah, I don't think it's like masterpiece inspired or anything in terms of the writing, but Joaquin Phoenix really elevates that material, and I genuinely do really like
You'd
that
watch it
movie.
again.
Yeah, and then the new Batman movie they made is clearly made by people who care about Batman's source material and love the character and have talent in writing and cinematography. They understand what they're doing. And then you look at the Spider-Man movies, and like No Way Home looks like it was like thrown together in a weekend, because it literally was. And then you, in terms of like the writing and the how quickly they got from the other Spider-Man that they had to like sign on to like rewriting the script. It was just a whole rush job. The plot of that movie was the post-credit scene originally for the Craven movie that the director wanted to make, and then Kevin Feige was supposedly like, oh, why don't we just make it a cameo parade? And then they like accommodated him at the last minute. They rewrote the entire script a year out, signed everyone on, rushed it together. That's why like the entire final sequence of that movie is filmed on a really cheap soundstage set where it's like scaffolding, and they just kind of like, oh, it's the Empire, it's the Statue of Liberty. And then you get to this movie, it's also like cheaply put together. Like the gap in quality between, in my view, the two most popular and uh successful superhero properties of all time, Spider-Man and Batman, like it's just night and day between how much people care, how much creative energy is being put into Batman versus what this crap is, you know. It's insane.
Well, I'm sorry about that for you, but after what I've been having to endure with Star Trek, at least I got one, man.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
with my
no,
favorite
it's
thing,
good.
because I realize that you've gone through some stuff with Star Wars also, but Star Trek does not have a Mandalorian, and you have to give me that.
That's very
Like,
true.
there's at least
Yeah,
something.
yes, that's very true. No, it's just crazy to me. Yeah, it's
The
just
super
unfortunate, you
No,
know.
it is really unfortunate. I think that Sony is writing at the same time as they're wanting to kind of separate themselves apart, sort of, with MCU, just to go like, look, we make movies that are successful too. Like, I really think some of that is going on. They're also writing really hard on the consumer confidence with Marvel, and if any other studio and I realize that I'm gonna get flack for this because there's folks I know watching right now that like Ragnarok and like Spider-Man No Way Home, but I feel like a lot fewer people would accept movies like those with just how like tonally against the premises of some of those projects they end up being, and how kind of thrown together they are, and how with Ragnarok's case, like improv comedy driven they are, which seems like really inappropriate for the material they're doing and all of that. Like, I don't think people would accept some of that stuff as much if it was made by another studio that didn't have
No,
the kind of the kind of track record and consumer confidence that this has. And the reason I bring that up is to say, Sony thinks they're going to be able to get away with some of the same stuff, and it's not going to work
no.
because they don't have that, and they're hoping that people will not notice that they're not MCU, while at the same time they have to make it a plot point that they're not.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
No, I mean, like, I use this example to people all the time. Like, think of any classic, like, film trilogy you can think of. Imagine if the final film in that trilogy, like Return of the King, for example, was just like cameos from the previous two films and all the other Lord of the Rings things that you like the animated films before animated Gandalf shows up to fight the Balrog with real Gandalf. Like, it would be terrible and no one would accept that. But because it has the Marvel branding on it, it's beyond reproach. You know, no, nobody cares.
And specifically with Spider-Man, because there's a whole generation that really misses that iteration and thinks that it's like the definitive Spider-Man. So I mean, like
Yeah,
there is a right place, right time thing going on with that too, where
yeah,
you have like your generation and a little younger, all early mid 20 somethings now.
yeah,
Um, like missed that version, didn't think Amazing was great, really don't like Tom Holland. Like, that's the kind of Iron Boy crowd. So like
Yeah.
Some of those people were already critical of Marvel just in how they were handling Spider-Man, but I do think general audiences are, because like, I don't know, again, we're gonna get flack for this. I'm not trying to say that anybody that's watching this right now that likes that movie is an idiot. I get the novelty of it, and honestly, I still think that some of the writing in that is cleverer than Dan does. Like I have seen the some of this is just perspective thing. Like I've seen some of that kind of thing done a lot worse than that. So like my standards were pretty low. There are some places that it surprised me a little bit. But the story doesn't make any sense, and the ending is awful.
Yeah, it just felt really cynical to me personally, and
No,
I found it
I get that.
revolting.
No, I get that.
But you know, Morbius specifically, is I think even more cynical than the Spider-Man movie, because at the very least, like the people that were involved in the Spider-Man movie actually like that character. This just seems like a passionless project, like
Yeah, sure.
the exact opposite of a passion project. Like I've seen even like superhero movies like the ones Marvel puts out, like some of the like the Ant-Man movie, for example, like after Edgar Wright got kicked off of that, like it's just an assembly line going through the motions, like some director like Kevin Feige shadow directing and pointing them, do just make the people say this to do whatever, and they put it out, and you know it's relatively successful. This was even like below that level. It's like no, like it just seems like nobody even wanted to make the movie. I don't know, it's very weird.
You're talking about with Spider-Man?
With Morbius.
Oh, with more? Yeah, no, nobody
Spider-Man
cared
at the
about
very
this.
least, there were people that like Spider-Man involved in the
Sure.
project. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, and with like nostalgia bait stuff, I was really mad about Ghostbusters, and then I thought Spider-Man handled some of that stuff a little bit better than that movie did. Because at least when the three Spider-Man show up, it's not for the last 5 minutes of the movie to just come in and save the day and like kick the protagonists out of their own movie. Like at least it didn't do that.
Yeah.
You didn't like some of the moments with the three Spider-Men. You know what I was excited about? They had moments. Because the Ghostbusters did not have that. So I don't know. This is perspective thing.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. But yeah, I mean, Morbius is like just like the lowest of the low. Like I understand people that like got caught up in the nostalgic fanboy moments, like in the same way that like Endgame caught up for a lot of people. Because I hated that movie too, because I thought it was just nostalgia bait and cynical. But the Spider-Man movie was even worse. But I understand at the very least like Spider-Man, and like for the sheer novelty of seeing him again, that's exciting to you. There are no moments like that in Morbius because it kind of has to stand on its own, and there's no cynical gimmicks to hang your hat on other than this is a vampire movie, and even those they like do poorly. Like it's just boring.
Yeah, I saw somebody in the comments earlier say at least they're trying a different genre, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but I can't give them, too much credit just for that, because they're not doing anything fun with it. Like, it doesn't make it watchable for me. So, like, yeah, okay, you got that first step, but then make it an actual vampire movie and not just fill in for a formula of a superhero thing. And like there are, I don't know, there's stuff that you could have run with in Morbius's character that just kind of sit there. Like, I found him relatively sympathetic at the beginning, and like he kills all the people on the boat, and he feels really bad about it. Like, it's at least a guy that like has feelings about the things he's doing, and like up until the third act, it's more straightforward and more cohesive than the Venom movies.
Yeah.
Like most certainly, I know what's happening.
Well,
It starts to get really formulaic, and then I don't care, and then it's also just too much of a retread of that first Venom movie.
Well, and to your point about it being a different genre, it's a different genre in the way that a lot of these Marvel projects are different genres, right? Like Marvel does this with every movie they come out with. They'll be like, Shang-Chi is like a Hong Kong kung fu action movie. And then the movie comes out and there's like superficial elements of that. But it's still Guy gets powers at the beginning of the movie, and then there's a big slam bang action CGI fest at the end. Like, it still fits into that formula, but has superficial sprinklings of a genre that may have inspired this character in the comics or something, but it still always has to adhere to the very basic, boring formula.
Well, that's why I liked Eternals, because it wasn't like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It went kind of against that, and then people didn't care for it, and they'll probably never do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, which is really sad, because that's not a perfect movie. I mean, it's certainly flawed, and it's long in the tooth, and the pacing is really weird, but they let a director try something, and they kind of stayed away from her, and I wish we would experiment more, like we were doing in the early days. I don't think you'll ever see Winter Soldier again. I know I've said that before.
Well, yeah, and I think the place for experimental filmmaking with these superhero characters now is DC, just because the executives have been so incompetent up to this point that they've basically thrown their heads in the air and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, just do whatever you want. Okay.
Well, that's what they should have done with Morbius. Here's this guy we have laying around. Who do we know that likes vampires?
Yeah.
You know, and like that's where they should have started. Just put out a call for directors, instead of just finding some workman director, and a call for writers.
They kind of did that for the screenwriter. They got the Dracula Untold people to do the script for this.
Well, see, you also... So maybe the people at the top have to have some appreciation of the genre in the first place to understand what things worked and what things didn't. But couldn't you just look at box office numbers? It's not like that movie did well.
Well, and this is the problem, when the people that are just money people, creative bone in their body, are the people running the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be naive
it's a business,
to say
but
that
it doesn't have to be like that. We've seen it married well before.
Yes, and I don't mean to be naive and say that like money people have never had any influence over films until Marvel came around
and never had the right instincts, because sometimes, of course, they do.
Yes, and I just mean that it's much more. They're much more in the driver's seat than they used to be.
That's it.
Yes, and I think that's a problem. And Morbius is that problem manifest, I think, because it's a victim of, even if there was a creative vision at some point, like, this isn't the movie that anybody wanted to make, and therefore nobody likes it.
No, and also you can tell that in the editing. I mean, we're an hour in, we haven't even flipped sides. Pretty clearly we're both doing this. And,
yeah, it's very bad.
Look, I don't want to speak for Dan. He can flip the side any way he wants to.
This is a flash cup, but I'm not feeling it.
But it would be really funny if you came on and reviewed Flash with me, and then you held up your Flash mug if you end up not liking it, and you're like, look, it has Flash, but it's red.
Well, I mean, Flash somehow became Batman the Cameo Parade, No Way Home, so it's Batman No Way Home. So
hey, but what if it's good? I just wanted to see that look on your face, man. I'm never gonna review a thing before I've seen it, but if
I'm not optimistic,
saying is, if I pull out a Magic 8-Ball right now, outlook not so good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've just always wanted a Flash live action movie, and I would have liked the Flash to be about
the Flash.
The Flash, yeah.
And I mean, I'm a Batman guy, but I don't need the Flash movie to be a Batman movie.
Yeah, me either.
And I just got a Batman movie,
which was great.
That was really good. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Here's the superficial thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
So talked a little bit about the vampire lore thing, or lack thereof, and then Morbius, for no good reason, at the end when he goes to fight his former best friend, who is a vampire, but is embracing it. It puts on something akin to the outfit he has in the comics, where he's got a like big flowing trench coat thing or cape or whatever, and it's purple in the underneath, in like the inseam, and then that way they can have a really generic, like, I want to say like early 90s TV, I'm gonna go that far, logo at the beginning with a big M that's purple that looks like it could stand for Magneto, but it's Morbius. Like, that was
it's
weird.
So weird.
So you gotta have that, and it's purple just because he's gonna wear that outfit. Why did he put that on?
And
why did he wear that?
When he flies are purple too, for no reason. Like, they have those weird like psychedelic things, which is hilarious because the director said that the visuals
That came
for
from
that stuff.
Pokemon.
Yes. He's like, I was watching Pokemon and I just love the way that looks, so I tried to incorporate that into Morbius's powers. He's like, the Pokemon waves. I'm like, what is a Pokemon wave? I don't know what that means.
Even if you did, why are you trying to be whimsical in a movie that's taking itself this damn seriously?
Yeah. Well, that's the
Right?
problem. I mean, all of these Marvel movies now have to, like, to some degree, have the corporate suit mandated Whedonism esque humor, where it's like
This doesn't
meta and
really
kind
do
of
that,
self aware.
though.
What's that?
This doesn't really do that, though.
Sometimes, and I think a lot of that stuff was cut out too. Like
Probably.
they cut out half of the I
That's
am
fair.
Venom gag that's in the trailer.
I know.
For
It's
no
weird.
reason.
He's like, nah, Michael Morbius. Like, why'd you even leave what was there? It's like, we have to have some connection to Venom. That's
Yes.
the only point where it's ever mentioned. Otherwise, it doesn't even matter. This is in that universe. You could, if that wasn't there, frankly, even if it is, because Venom could exist in other universes, it'd be really easy if you wanted to, for some reason later on, to say this is yet a third continuity. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing in it that ties it to anything.
No. Um, this movie like feels to me what the Sony people learned from Marvel, where it's like, okay, Marvel has a formula for their movies that are successful, and at the very least, like Kevin Feige, as much as issues as I have with him, he actually does know some things about Marvel history and these characters, and does have at least some creative instincts. I don't
Yeah.
think he's a particularly great creative person in my view, but
Well, I also
he
think he's burnt out, and he's just trying to figure out a way to keep the train moving at this
sure,
point.
that maybe that's a part of it too. But this just speaks to me a lot. It's just the seams of what Marvel does as a product producing factory made manifest.
Yeah.
It's very it's just gross. I think.
I agree with that, but like, I don't know. I kind of want to appreciate. I'm trying not to contradict myself, because I'm saying that like it's kind of soulless and boring, the movie, and it doesn't have a lot of moments of like real levity and stuff. Like I said, I think that Leto himself is positive enough for this role. Like I like even
Yeah.
in his vampire form and all that. Like I found myself liking him. And
Yeah, he's fine.
I didn't think he was like devoid of humanity and humor and stuff. And I'm surprised I'm saying like Jared Leto of all people like brought the most humanity to this movie. But and like there is clearly Matt Smith is trying to have fun with his character. And there's like some attempt at gravitas and stuff with that, but it also creates some some kind of total confusion because none of the rest of the movie is doing any of that. Like I said, I think the film itself, in from the screenwriting level, is taking itself too seriously. But I also like, and it might be because of what you said, it might be stuff cut out, but I do kind of like that it's trying to be a somewhat more serious, more kind of horror movie.
Clearly, yeah. In some places, definitely.
But it just doesn't find its own unique tone is the problem.
Yeah, it's trying to
It's like it
check
starts
all
from
of the
that place,
boxes.
but then it's got to find a way to like make the family going Marvel people happy, and maybe
Exactly.
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a victim of Suits designing a movie to check all the boxes, and therefore it pleases no one because it's trying to be all things to all people.
And then we just kind of water it down and dilute it, but I'm not
Yep.
sure how much great stuff was there in the first place. Like I hesitate saying there was this really great movie here and then it got I don't think that's true.
I agree. Yeah. I think if this movie was like a half hour longer, it would have been just as bad, but like a little bit more coherent.
And if it was a half hour long, it would have been less coherent but wouldn't have wasted as much of my time.
Very true.
Super Billy, $5 super chat. The obvious thing to do with a Venom or Morbius spin-off is to make it a straight horror film instead of forcing it into the typical superhero mold, which we just kind of suggested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Malcolm Davis, $5 super chat. Thank you guys. I'm surprised and that's a name I don't recognize. Welcome. I'm surprised the trailers didn't spoil the whole movie, but did tease different story beats. Matt Smith is having a lot of fun on screen. Yeah, I mean, he's at least elevating the entertainment of it. Well, you're right, and that's where I get off saying that Sony didn't have any faith in this movie, because when they think a movie's going to be successful, they tell you everything that's going to happen in it. I don't know why that is, but they do.
One of the weird things about Matt Smith's character when he was doing press for this movie is his character was originally a different character, and then in reshoots his name was changed, and in interviews he actually didn't even know which character he was playing in the final cut of the movie.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he had no idea. So.
Well, I was gonna say earlier, like we finally flipped our signs. I usually do a best thing, worst thing at the beginning of this. Didn't do that. If I had to pick a worst thing with this movie, Dan, it's we talked about tonal incoherence and all of that. It's actually the editing, which I very rarely say. It's structure and editing with this one. There's, like you said, there's a lot of things that feel like they're cut out, where we just like really inorganically jump to a moment we need. What was with the bit where like he gets arrested and just immediately he's in jail? Like, I've seen that transition work in things before. It didn't here. It felt like a whole scene was missing.
Yeah.
So that was weird, but like it's so heavily, like, it feels like an AI put the movie together. Like, had a bunch of footage on the cutting room floor, and like an AI from the period of the movie that it feels like you're watching. Not even a very sophisticated one. It's like, ended the movie before the movie was actually over, put some scenes maybe kind of out of order, or like just picked like a weird jumbled sequence of some events. But then it went even this far. There are moments, I counted 2 or 3 at least, where characters seem to be saying something, but there's clear ADR that's changing what's in their mouths. Did you notice that?
Not so much, but what were you thinking of?
I'm trying to remember precise moments. There's... I can't
I mean,
remember.
it wouldn't surprise me. I just
can't remember exactly when, but I remember there being a couple points where I'm like, that is clearly not what that guy is saying right now. Where like his mouth is moving, other words are happening, and that was very strange.
Well, it's very clear that, whatever role Tyrese Gibson and his goofy partner had in this movie beforehand was completely reduced.
One of them was the black cop. Now that you're saying that, was like he had a line, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something about somebody getting hurt, like hurting an arm. That's what it was. It was like somebody hurt their arm, and it looked like he was saying that somebody like got killed or went to the hospital, or like you could kind of make out what his mouth was saying.
Yeah, no,
it's that kind of thing.
Those characters are completely useless. And the cut of the movie that exists, like, they only seem like they're here because it was impossible to cut them out of some scenes.
Yeah, and I never thought I'd say low rent Sam and Twitch, but
that's totally what they are, though. Yeah. It's nuts.
The guy with glasses is Twitch. Okay, I'm going to read some comments here.
Awesome.
Brian, the Spoilercast is going to be longer than the movie. That's what we aim for with the Spoilercast. No, I'm kidding. No, it's because the movie's too short.
Yeah. There's almost even not enough of this movie to, like, talk about. It's very strange.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's major stuff that we're not discussing, and then I'm like, A, it's not coming to mind, and B, does anybody care? Like, of course, stuff that we haven't brought up yet with the actual story and plot and characterization and stuff, feel free to mention and jog our memories. But like, I feel like we've kind of hit the major beats already.
Yeah, my main issues were just in terms of the plotting, like everything is contrived and no one acts like a real human being at any point in the movie. Like,
I don't go quite that far, just because I feel like there are like flashes of like humanity and actual thoughtfulness in Leto.
In his performance, yes.
Well,
I just mean the plotting and the writing, the dialogue.
Even sometimes
stuff.
in his characterization, though, just emotional stuff, or even occasionally decisions he'll make. Like, I'm trying to give the movie credit where I'm finding it.
No, I think Leto's performance is perfectly fine. I'm with you on that for sure.
Where he's like, I've got. And I'm mentioning this because of places where I was actually almost invested, and then it took me out again. Because I'm like, oh, there's something here, and then like I actually care about what's happening. Like when he's talking to his partner, and by the way, she's kind of a plank of wood, and
she is. Yes.
It's that typical thing. We have this with Venom too, where we kind of act like we have these two characters with real romantic chemistry that don't really have it, and you have an obligatory kiss, and I'm yawning, and yeah.
The couple in this is somehow more believable to me than the Venom one. Like, I think the actress and Tom Hardy in the Venom movies, that is his love interest, have zero chemistry. Zero.
It helps that Morbius isn't an idiot in like getting his girlfriend fired from a job, and
that's true.
Has to break up, and our hero is like pining away and being insanely pathetic the whole rest of the movie about it. Like, at least we didn't have to sit through all of that. It is hard to give us romantic chemistry between two characters that are spending almost the entire movie doing that, to be fair.
Yes.
Because they're only together for like 2 scenes in the whole movie, and then after that they're broken up. So to be fair. Oh, and that's another thing that's just like the Venom movie, where we have to have. We did it for a shorter period of time, of course, but we have to have her be a Venom, and we have to have this girl be a vampire.
That's right.
Yeah, you also have to do that whole thing. But I don't know, the bit where he's talking to her and he's like, I've got to figure out, and again, we dropped the thread, but like, I've got to figure out a way so that I don't have to drink human blood. And then when he's talking about maybe he's going to have to kill his best friend so that he's not being a vampire and going around and killing people, like, I don't know, he's being logical and plausible and feeling bad about things in those moments. Like, that seems
Captain
like
Logan, are you ready for the all female Spider-Man character scene from Sinister Six Endgame? Like, that's gonna happen, I hope you know. Like, female vampire, She-Venom, Shriek, they're all gonna like have an all-female scene, and with Madam Web too.
So you think we're gonna have a Sinister Six versus a lady Sinister Six?
Not versus. I think.
Or do you think it'll be 3 ladies in the Sinister Six, and then they'll get a moment where it's the women? Is that what you're saying?
What I think they're gonna do is the Morbius director has been talking about Sony is trying to do the spider totem thing from JMS's run, where there is a Spider-Man in every universe and a representative of all the animals.
I thought there would be a reveal about that in this after he said that. I really thought that would be the after credit scene.
So I think Moreland is going to be their Thanos, and they'll set him up in a really shoehorned and uninteresting way, and then they'll do a Sinister Six movie where they fight him, and that's when the all-female Sinister Six team up thing will happen, where they'll fight Moreland's minions. If they get that far.
I already hate that character. And I don't like characters I like in these movies. So now I'm going to have to sit through a Moreland done by these bozos?
Yeah, I mean, if they get this far. I mean, Morbius looks like it'll be marginally profitable, if at all. So, I mean, Craven will at least be subjected to, because that's being filmed at the moment.
I think there's an assumption you're making with this that I'm not, which is that Sony actually cares how this movie performs. Because you have to remember, it's not like Marvel gets all the money from the last Spider-Man movie. They've got money to burn now.
They do. That's true.
Like, they'll be able to use that to continue facilitating projects, some of which might perform and some of which might not, and their Venom movies are successful. So you're only talking about 1 dud out of 3, and it's probably gonna like at least make its money back. So I don't think it's gonna be real profitable, but it's already like over 100 million worldwide, and it didn't even cost that much to make. And like you said, they didn't spend much money on advertising. Which means
like nothing.
I'm not saying they're in the green yet, but they're close. And
they are.
Yeah, they had a 74% drop after this, but if they can get any sales from digital rentals and things, like I think they'll. I'm just saying, I don't think this is going to affect any of their plans moving forward.
I think if they had a Morbius 2 planned, I think maybe they'll rethink that. But I agree with you in the sense that I don't think they will let Jared Leto go, in the sense that he seems to really like playing this character, and I think that he will be in future team up projects, like how the Hulk was in Thor Ragnarok. It's a Thor movie, but like every Marvel movie has to be a team up movie now.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, they're going to do their Avengers, so at the very least, he'll be in that.
Exactly. So he'll at least be in that. And I guess we'll see how it turns out.
No, I honestly think the next Venom movie could just have him in it.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, I think that's a possibility for sure.
Let's see what else folks are saying in the comments here. Super Billy, P.S. Matt Smith is a good actor, bears zero responsibility for these movies being awful. He's just remarkably unlucky, like Ryan Reynolds was for a while. Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think he's bad in this.
I think Matt Smith's the best part of the movie.
That dancing thing is silly, of course, but like, you know, and it kind of harkens back to Spider-Man 3 with the kitchen scene and all of that, but like, he's good.
I think he's the best part of the movie. Like, he's the only person that is at all entertaining in this. Leto is fine, but I think Matt Smith knows what he's in a way that Leto does not.
No, you're right. Leto's not entertaining. I just believed him in a way I didn't expect to, which I kind of appreciate. I also think it's ironic that he's not doing an accent.
Yeah.
Like, they get that guy who loves doing goofy accents, and then he's doing the most straight-laced voice and performance you could possibly imagine. No Felicia. I
wish that he did his House of Gucci Super Mario and cartoon accent. That would have been amazing. I'm a Michael Morbius.
Oh my god, is that what he sounds like? Is that
you need to watch House of Gucci?
I don't want to.
There's a scene where he's like talking to Lady Gaga in that movie, and he goes, "Oh, you're gonna make me cry."
That's amazing.
It's so bad.
Is a little goblin gonna cry? Now I'm just imagining other Spider-Man characters being voiced like that. So here's what I was baffled by. You mentioned at the beginning of this that there were silly antics with Jared Leto's method acting again. At least he wasn't sending rats to people or anything. But yeah. He only has to be handicapped for 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. No,
Most
it's insane.
of the movie, he's got superpowers, and he's not doing that. You know?
No, it makes no sense.
It'd be like if the kid playing Matt Murdock was like, okay, I gotta actually be blind, you guys. I'm gonna run into walls and...
I'm going to run into walls. I'm just picturing this kid acting. He's just in his house, just like continuously running into a wall to practice his acting.
It's practice.
Oh my god.
Exactly. It'd be like that. Buster Sim, if Sony is just focusing on villains, I'll read the rest of this in a minute. If Sony is just focusing on villains, could we please have them, like, I don't know, fight a superhero and then get a story, maybe? Like, I still can't get my mind around, I don't mean to repeat myself, I still can't get my mind around how these things feel like spin-offs to movies that haven't been made, to the point where you even did it. People keep calling these spin-offs. They're not spin-offs. They can spin out of anything. It's the introduction to these characters. At the very, very least, could one of them not be an origin story? I mean, I realize that Venom got a sequel, but, like, they're all gonna be like this, right?
Well, it's like the, it's the hackneyed way that Warner Brothers sort of tried to do their DC universe, where they're like, we're gonna start with throwing everything into one movie and then expand outwards. Sony is like, we are going to exist in a universe where Spider-Man supposedly exists, because the Morbius director has been saying this, like, the Spider-Man that's in this universe will be revealed in the future. So they're starting from a place where we don't know.
When you have a Venom when you have a Venom that is that has a face that's like a perversion of a Spider-Man face, and then it wasn't like inspired by that, but he's out there somewhere. I can't deal with that.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and the hilarious thing about this Michael Keaton scene is, so he shows up in a prison and he just looks around and he goes, "I hope the food's better in this joint," and then and then on the news it says that Adrian Toomes appeared in this prison cell by interdimensional magic, and they're like, because he's not a criminal in our universe, we have to let him go, as if they kind of know who he is. And then in a universe where his Vulture costume never existed, that was designed by the Tinkerer. He doesn't know how to make this suit. It was made for him by another guy. He just has one in this alternate universe somehow, and he shows up because people just let him go, and he says, it has something to do with Spider-Man, I guess. We should team up and do some good. I'm like, well, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. No, we haven't broken that down yet. It's the only interesting thing to really talk about.
Oh my god, it's so
because it's so
awful.
insanely hackneyed. So you said that No Way Home. I know people are gonna hate us after this video, but you said that No Way Home feels like it was written in a weekend because it was. The end of this feels like it was written on a cocktail napkin while somebody was already 6 drinks in while bar hopping.
Yes,
and maybe it was that too. It's entirely possible. But you've got. I've never seen that. I read an article today where somebody was breaking those down and was really, really funny about how weird they were. It was like, Sony seems to not understand the point of after credit scenes.
Yeah, I know.
Something that we're not talking about with the Adrian Toomes thing is, because you said, you know, here's all the reasons it would be really interesting, of course, to bring him back and have him deal with Spider-Man again. Let's not pretend like it wasn't already screwed up, right? Like, whether he's in this Venom universe or still back in the MCU universe, he's not interesting anymore. There's nothing left to do with that character because you took the memory of Peter Parker away from him, so this major part of who he is and his character arc he doesn't have anymore. So I don't know who this character is anymore. Like, not a total blank slate, but he's whoever he was before he had that experience. And I've seen this in a lot of things, and it always drives me crazy, and it sucks because we're stuck with it now with the MCU forever, probably. Where you have characters that have, I've mentioned this before, but like this happens in the end of season 4, Angel, where the memory of Angel's son is taken away from everybody, which was a major plot point in creating the in the evolution of the darkness you get with Wesley's character. Once you take Angel's kid out of the equation, I don't know why he's brooding anymore and why he's got stubble on his chin, but he still does the whole rest of the show. And then later on, he finally gets the memories back from that. I'm like, okay, at least he's kind of that character again. But the problem is when you start like cherry picking, taking events out of people's memories, but leaving other ones, you're not playing fair at all with the audience anymore. I don't know who these characters are. He knows Spider-Man, but he doesn't know Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, the compassion that he had for that character and, like, at the end of that, where he developed respect for Peter and all that, it's gone now. So, like, I already don't care about this guy anymore. And by the way, he was the best villain in the MCU.
Yeah, I think so, too. And the other thing that doesn't make any sense either is that his entire motivation in the first movie that he's in is tied directly to his family. Like, he's doing everything that he's doing for his family, and the reason why he's able to do what he does,
once he finds out he's in another universe, he should be like, crap, I gotta get back my family.
Yeah. And the only reason why he's able to do all this stuff is because they had access to the alien technology that was left behind by the Chitauri. How is his Vulture suit that's based on Chitauri technology working in this alternate universe where they never
Even if he knows how to build it.
Yeah, he doesn't, because the Tinkerer built it for him.
Well, here's the thing. I will, to a degree, maybe give them that. I mean, I don't know how he built it that fast. He can't have been there. Where did he get the resources? What's he doing? I don't know.
He's not a scientist, though. He's a blue-collar, like, construction worker. Like, he doesn't know how to build this stuff.
Well, he knows how to build things. If he had the blueprints, maybe, is all I'm saying. But he doesn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
busted because at least in the comics, Adrian Toomes built his own suit. They seem to have forgotten that that's not what they did in this.
Yeah, no, his suit is made by the Tinkerer out of Chitauri technology in the MCU.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is, even if he knows how to build it, he doesn't have the Chitauri stuff. Like was it built out of different material? Doesn't he need different metal for it? I could be
Don't
wrong
think,
about that.
just consume.
Oh, sorry about that. Busted Sim. Wait, so the MCU Vulture is in the end credits of this universe, and he's just evil now? And doesn't he have a daughter? Yeah, exactly. And that makes it okay for him to break the law. Oh wait, that's Sandman.
Exactly.
Busted Sim, and he was evil for his daughter, but now he's just evil. Well, I mean, it might still sort of be because of that. When you take random elements, especially main crux-worthy elements, out of somebody's background, because we are, after all, a sum of our events to some degree, all bets are off after that. I'm not going to understand anybody's motivations.
No, this is like telenovela writing, like terrible TV soap opera writing. That's where we're at with Spider-Man.
Brian says he stole it from Oscorp. Oh, yes, of course. Sure.
True.
Plushie DX time skip. Well, yeah, it's clearly a time skip, but I just found myself... I guess we don't have any context, but, like, is it 4 years later? Is it 3 months later? Like...
Yeah. Well, and the weird thing's going to be when they reveal whoever this Spider-Man is. I really
it doesn't feel
hope
like he could possibly have been there very long, because it seems like he just got there when he's like, something to do with Spider-Man, I guess. Like, no,
Yeah.
It feels like the very next day he's got that suit.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just, a lot of people after No Way Home came out, and they were high on the fanboy crack that is that movie. A lot of people were like, oh, they want like Andrew Garfield to be the Spider-Man for this universe. He's my favorite Spider-Man actor. I don't want him in these movies, and I don't think he would want to be in them, because he, like, out of all of the Spider-Man actors, seems to really care about the, like, creative integrity of the movies he's in, and, like, really wants to do right by this character. I can't see him signing up to be in a movie like Morbius. You know what I mean? Or even the first Venom movie. It's like...
No, I'm with you. Well, and I know you and I disagree with some things with that movie. So like you're not gonna agree with this. I liked I was shocked by this. I liked Maguire shockingly well in that. Garfield did everything he could do, but like making a joke out of his being like the unpopular Spider-Man and all that wasn't classy. Like,
well, it's just meta fanboy stuff. It was written
Yeah.
by Reddit, like all of the Marvel movies are now.
Somebody said, by the way, that the Madam Web movie is being written by the guy that wrote this, so that's unfortunate.
That'll be great.
Senior Sticks, the new Spider-Man of Venom can be the Scorpion Cap.
I was excited to see the
Okay.
MCU version of Scorpion when the first movie was so great in this, rebooted Spider-Man
Is
series.
that a
I
joke
love...
about how Scorpion in the comics was once Venom? Is that why he's saying that? I'm not fully understanding that comment, or if that's a joke or not.
I mean, that was a thing, but
No, I know. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure why he's saying like Spider-Man could be Scorpion. I'm not fully understanding that comment,
weird.
but anyway. But no, I'm with you. I mean, we had, and just all the villains that we were setting up in Homecoming that we unceremoniously dropped.
well, yeah, and like a lot of people are like, oh, like this is proof that like Sony should sell the rights back to Marvel. I don't know, like I don't even trust Marvel at this point based on like the current quality of their output. Like I just think we should stop at this point.
Okay, so several people are actually bringing up the stealing it from Oscorp idea, but he's in another universe.
Yeah.
Like, why would that suit be at Oscorp? I don't understand. Or are they just adding that to further your point that he didn't build it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think these people are thinking about it more than Sony did when they made the after credit sequence already. I don't think there's an actual explanation.
J Forever King, why would Venom want to fight Spider-Man when he's a good guy, or like basically kind of a good guy? Yeah, I mean they'll contrive some reason, and I'm sure it'll be the kind of thing where they'll fight for 5 minutes and then they're friends after that or something, or they like hate each other for no reason but have to work together.
Yeah, definitely.
Brian, there was allegedly a subplot where Morbius, Vulture, and Scorpion broke out of prison together, and the director said he filmed scenes with Tom Hardy and J.K. Simmons for Morbius. That's crazy.
Very weird.
If that's true.
Yeah, I didn't hear about any of those scenes, but maybe so.
If all of this is true, with like all these things that we're finding out or allegedly were made for this movie that were dropped, Dan, it has to have actually cost more than they're saying it did, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I would think.
I'm not sure.
Maybe not. You know what's kind of a weird... I just thought of this. You know what's kind of a weird coincidence, Dan? This is silly. I'm stretching for this coincidence. So I'm a week behind with movies. I took off last weekend, so I didn't go see Morbius. And I saw today what I was missing. Sonic 2's out already. I haven't seen that yet either. I'm going to go next weekend, and then we're going to review it on Sunday. So Sonic, the Sonic movies... don't have the name of Sonic's standard homeworld, which is Mobius. And the movie that came out before Sonic 2 is Morbius. And that's kind of odd.
I wonder if Mobius ever drew Morbius comics.
I don't know.
I wonder.
Probably looks pretty cool because his stuff always looks good. But
yeah. I feel like Mobius is a little above, like, Morbius.
I guess Senior Sticks is just saying that Scorpion could be a superhero and be there instead of Spider-Man, but they're talking about a Spider-Man, so I don't know.
I have no interest in seeing a superhero Scorpion movie personally, but have at it.
Do you have any interest in a superhero Morbius movie? Because that's been made now. And we live in the Twilight Zone now, Dan. It's like all these things 20 years ago you couldn't have ever imagined, like good or bad, are finally coming to fruition. And some of them are things like this, where it's like, yeah, did you ever think you'd get a Morbius movie that fits into like the standard superhero formula, and then has an ending with Michael Keaton, or a mid-credit scene with two of them with Michael Keaton showing up? God, that was so... Sorry, that was so bizarre. And it's like, we haven't established him yet. Here's a scene that establishes him. Okay, now here's a scene where he puts on that suit to make all the fanboys excited. All right. God, what?
It's amazing to me that we're at the point where Sony used the Vulture, also no one's favorite Spider-Man villain, before he was in the first Spider-Man Homecoming, when he was in the first MCU Spider-Man movie. They used him to excite fanboys in a Morbius film, also no one's favorite Spider-Man villain. It's like, it's a wild world.
No, it's not supposed to be because anybody cares about Vulture. It's supposed to be because it's Michael Keaton and he's a name.
Right.
And they had to sell their movie on that, even though not only is he hardly in the movie, but none of the things that were in the trailer are in the movie.
I really miss...
Or I guess the one thing.
I really miss the scene from the trailer where Michael Keaton gets out of the cop car and he looks at Jared Leto and goes, "What's up, Doc?"
He at least got to do Michael Keaton-y things. And he's like...
What? See, the thing is, in the Spider-Man movie, he's not, like, weirdo Michael Keaton. You know what I mean?
That's why a lot of people... And I wonder if this wasn't true at one time and then it changed. Well, actually, I bet this is the case. Because you were talking about earlier how they had a whole subplot that they had to cut because they realized, oh, it's a multiverse, and maybe they didn't even know they weren't in the MCU. I still think that that's possible. I don't think he was MCU version of a Vulture. I think they probably thought he was, but they just wrote him their way.
Like I said, in interviews, he had no idea what was happening when he was filming this movie.
In that trailer, he seemed to have like kind of a different accent.
It's very strange, yeah.
You know, and there was, and it seemed like he had maybe had a scene or two with Morbius before whatever happens. It looks like he's being arrested or something, or I forget what was happening in that scene. Sorry, I don't remember the trailer scene well enough. That's not in the actual film I just watched. Malcolm Davis, $2 super chat. Name 4 movies made during COVID that you like. Okay, so
Made during COVID?
I don't know for sure if I've seen 4 movies that were made during COVID, and B, of movies I've seen recently, I couldn't begin to tell you which ones were definitely made start to finish during COVID, which ones were just finished during COVID, which ones were totally shot and then COVID happened. Like, I don't know all of that for sure. So it would be hard to do that.
I know at the very least that the Batman was affected by COVID. They had to like stop shooting that multiple times and then resumed.
Wonderful.
So that's one of the ones I'll name because the Batman is really, really good. That's a fantastic movie. So I'll name that one at least.
Yeah, and of course that would be on my list too. I mean, I saw movies last year that I really liked, but I don't know how much any of them were affected by COVID. Like, I don't know if the last Bond movie was affected at all by that. As far as just principal shooting, I liked it a lot, but I'm not
the
sure
new
if
Bond
it counts.
Great.
I don't know if any of that happened with Dune, but I liked Dune a lot.
Same.
There was another one. I don't know how much Eternals was affected by that, but that's the most recent MCU movie that I was really happy with.
I haven't even seen that yet. I gotta check that out at some point.
And I'm not sure how you'll feel about it, but it was different. It's got huge holes, but it was interesting. So I was, I had something to latch on to anyway.
Well, that's better than Ant-Man, where it's like not interesting,
Well, that's true. That's true. Although there's other MCU movies that I would put well under Ant-Man. Now, the Ant-Man sequel bores me to tears.
I didn't even bother.
But I like that first movie better than that. J Forever King. Look, your standards get lowered if you watch everything, okay? J Forever King, $1.99 super chat. What was this better or worse than Fant Four Stick?
Worse.
Probably on par.
I think I liked parts of the Fantastic Four reboot. I thought there were some interesting ideas, at least at the beginning, with how they kind of interpreted some of the characters.
I like the body horror stuff.
Yeah, this was entirely devoid of ideas, period. So I would say it's worse.
That's true. It didn't have them.
It didn't have those.
It didn't have a lot of them. Your friend, Dr. John Kelling. Hi, John. Morbius is such a low-tier character. Even people who do know about Morbius don't care about Morbius. And if you say you care about Morbius, you're lying. No one cares about him.
Yeah.
Did you know
there's this really embarrassing ex-Collider guy that got hired with Sony to do press for this movie and like goes on review shows like he objectively is like a real reviewer, and he just talks about how like Morbius is a character that he grew up with and like read all of this Morbius solo series. I'm like, I just don't believe you. Like, that didn't happen.
Here's how little, and I mean, like, I guess Morbius can be cool. I don't know a ton about that character. He shows up in some things that I've read. I'm so not a Morbius fan that we're like an hour 40 minutes. I don't know how we've talked about this long. To be fair, a lot of this Spoilercast was not about the movie, but about
it's about the business end, because that's
the
like
situation at large.
Yeah, because the business end is like entirely what this movie is. Like, it's a product of all of those things.
How do you not talk about that? But yeah, so we're like an hour 43 minutes into talking about this, and I have not yet mentioned that I actually own the first appearance of Morbius.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Cool. I'm not a Morbius fan, but I have that because I collect Amazing Spider-Man. It's a cool cover.
That's awesome.
I meant to pull it out for this and I forgot, but yeah, I have that.
That's awesome.
Isn't that special? Here's a question. Do you think this movie made the value of that comic go up? Because I doubt it.
I also doubt it.
Because that happens with stuff.
It may have went up like $2 opening weekend and then went back to the price it was at before.
You know, I was making the point at dinner because I went and saw Morbius today by myself, and Jason was asking me about it, and I was talking about how weird it was that, you know, Sony went to Morbius next after Venom, and that nobody cares about that character. And he was like, "Yeah, but Dad, what about Eternals? What about Shang-Chi? Like, I'd never heard of either of those, and
Yeah.
people seemed interested in them." And I said, "Well, you know what the difference is, son? You know what the you know what
Listen to me, Sonny.
you know what the difference is? Those are superheroes." In superhero movies, like, you can introduce them in their own films and take the Guardians risk and hope people will care about them. But if you're gonna do that with a villain, you got to make a different kind of movie.
Well, in Shang-Chi, like, also had like series that ran for like a good like 10, 15 years in the 70s and stuff. Like, he's a character that, while niche, did have a substantial fan base. Morbius has had solo series over the years, but they never been long running. He's not one of the um, key members of the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery. I mean, he's there. I don't dislike Morbius, but like he's not top tier like villains I want to see adapted on screen in the Spider-Man universe or anything.
Well, and you could have said the same thing about Blade, but again, at least Blade is an anti-hero in the first place. It's like making a Punisher movie.
Yeah.
And again, you can make anything work, you just got to make it work. I'm not saying you couldn't have done Morbius well by himself as a solo thing, but it would have to be, he'd have to be more morally ambiguous than he is here, and you have to get away from that formula. But like, because again, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to say like, oh, it's dumb that we did this because nobody knew about him. Nobody knew about Blade either. That's why it worked, because somebody really wanted to make that, and then when people went to the theater and saw that, they thought it was an original character. You could have maybe done that with Morbius, but they kind of sold it more as like, because all of this, it's Spider-Man characters.
Yeah.
Without Spider-Man.
Well, and the difference, obviously, between this and Blade is Blade, like you said, somebody wanted to make that movie versus this, where it was assigned to people by the studio.
That's exactly right. Yeah, like it wasn't a Deadpool situation where like somebody had to lobby for a character they wanted to put on screen.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, anyway, I think that's gonna about do it for us, unless there's anything you can think of that we need to mention about the movie itself, Dan.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we talked about my main kind of like criticisms of the movie. We talked about some of the little positives that are there, but it's hard just not to talk about the business stuff because it's so transparently like in your face, aggressively cynical, you know?
Well, yeah, and you use the word cynical to describe these things a lot, and I think you're right. I think another word that is really important to put equal with that is entitled.
Yeah.
I really do. Because I watch a movie like this and I say, why am I supposed to care? And the answer to that is, we own the character, and that means that we deserve for you to give us our money and look at this. It really feels like that to me.
Well, that's how I feel whenever Marvel like puts up those like, you know, banners of like all of the shows and movies they're watching that all us pay piggies are supposed to give the money for, and we're gonna love them. And I'm like, I don't even have time to consume all this content, let alone the desire to give you money for all these things.
Yeah, there's this expectation that like you're gonna watch this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, you got to give us some more credit than that and let us pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
And then the burden is on you to make it worth my while.
I agree.
And the attitude, especially with these, the attitude to me with Sony is, we own it, so you should be looking at it.
Yep. And it's a Marvel thing, so therefore, the brand loyalty demands that you consume it. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, thanks a lot for watching, folks. Sorry for the kind of downer ending of this video, but
if we had talked about something like the Batman, we would have been much more positive. But this was just a bad movie.
Well, it's not my fault. You were supposed to be on that video, and you couldn't make it that night, Dan.
Yep.
And if you'd been there, you could have talked about something that was fun to talk about.
I know, yeah. But I'm hoping that, you know, whatever happens with Spider-Man on film eventually turns around, of course. I mean, we've gotten movies that I've liked and before, so hopefully they are able to, something slips through the cracks. But as of right now, I couldn't care less.
it's strange what I'm about to say because I know that you're real disenfranchised with multiverse and with good reason, but I can't. But I guess I have to say it. The only shining light right now for Spider-Man is Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Because we have a sequel for that coming out in October, and that first
And the
movie
first movie's great. Yeah.
And I've got faith in the guys writing that, and so I didn't want it to be more multiverse right away. I wanted to go to some different universes and tell whole stories about singular characters, but we're not doing that. Hopefully I'll like what they're doing. I'm a little bit nervous about the part 1 part 2 thing. I think they might be getting a little bit too big for the britches with that, but
yeah, I guess we'll see, but I agree with you. I mean, I am legitimately excited for that movie because I thought the first one was great. And I'm excited to see Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara. That's going to be pretty cool.
I love 2099. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man things, and
I love that, and I love Oscar Isaac. Like, that is just, for me, a match made in heaven. Like, I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. Maybe if we can ever find the time, Dan, when we get closer to that, we could consider getting back to 2099 and doing another video or two on that. Because
that'd be fun.
We've reviewed 2 or 3 arcs of that, but then we didn't get back to it, and that was years ago now. But it might be fun to wet our beaks in that again and review something from that series.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I mean, Peter David, he writes all of that stuff, so it would be cool. He's one of my favorites.
Well, anyway, once again, thanks for being here, guys, and we'll see you again real soon with lots more content here on Geekvolution. What is the next thing? I guess I've got a request on Tuesday on what is that? I've got a request coming up with some weird Nick Cage movie that I'd never heard of before that Tom asked us to talk about.
Tom requested it?
Yeah, Tom requested something called Family Man with Nick Cage. I don't know what that is. So we're doing that.
Was this something from Tom's infamous list?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. That's the name on my little piece of paper, Dan. That's all I know, man.
True.
Captain Logan show on Thursday, and then Friday night we're doing. I should mention this. Friday night we're doing a commentary series on the Morbius episodes of of the 90s Spider-Man show.
Oh, that's awesome. Those episodes are actually pretty good.
Yeah. And of course, Dan, if you're around that night, you're totally welcome. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I may be. I don't know what I'm doing this weekend yet, but I'll let you know. We can talk about it through the chats and the internets and all that.
But yeah, mini marathon on that on Friday. In the meantime, we'll see you again real soon. I'm Captain Logan. This was Dan Torrey.
And I was Dan. Bye-bye, everybody.